Hello everyone, and welcome back to Command Block Central. So I was sitting there one day trying to figure out what my next command block project was going to be. After a while, I thought, what about that game that came on your Windows computer way back in the day? The game you didn't really know how to play at first, so you played solitaire instead. It was the one with all the colored numbers, and the clicking, and the mines, and all the losing. Then one day you decide that you're going to learn this game, and you find out that it's actually quite addicting. By now you should know what game I'm talking about. Minesweeper. I decided that Minesweeper would be the perfect game to build in Minecraft as my next command block project. So I did a little research on the game mechanics and came up with 3 main tasks that needed to happen in order for Minesweeper to be functional in Minecraft. The tasks were where and why the colored numbers show up, generating a random grid of 10 mines, and what happens when you click on a tile. And with that, it was time to fire up Minecraft and get to work on task number 1. Okay, the first thing I needed to figure out was the numbers and why they show up on the board, where they show up. So, in the actual game, the numbers represent how many mines are next to a specific tile. So, this tile here is a 1. So I know that this tile here has to be a mine. This tile is also a 1, which is touching this mine here. So I know that this is not a mine. Same with this. And now I know that this is in fact a mine here. If I look here, these 2s tell me that all these tiles here are mines. This one is not, and this one is not. And this 3 is touching 3 mines here. So I got with my good old buddy, the command block, and we put our heads together to try to figure out how to recreate the logic of where the numbers show up and why they show up. You got any ideas there? Really? Nothing? Huh. Okay then. So I was pretty sure there was no way to do this using commands or a series of commands, so I knew I was going to have to do something else. So let's pretend that this right here is a tile in the game, and this white block is a mine. So because this tile is next to one mine, it will need to display a 1, or we'll just use blue to represent the number 1. If there are 2 mines next to this tile here, then this needs to turn green or be a 2. And if there are 3 mines next to a tile, then this needs to turn red or display a 3. So if I start with all the different possibilities that a tile could be next to one mine, that would look like this. So there are 8 different possibilities that one mine is next to a specific tile. Then moving on to 2 mines, I found out there were quite a bit more possibilities, as you can see here. Oh boy, and 3 mines, even more. And naturally, even more with 4 mines. So luckily after the 4s, the hard work was over, and I was actually able to take my 3 column here and copy it over to my 5 column and then just invert the colors. Same with my 2 column here. Copied it over to the 6 and inverted the colors. And then the 1 to the 7 and the 0 to the 8. So the next step was to take each one of those sections, I think there were about 260 or so, and put them into a function, and with a little help from copy and paste and just going in one at a time and updating these numbers by 2s, I was able to get all the coordinates in there for each of those sections. Okay, so now it was time for the fun part. So I've got all my command blocks here, and they're all set to repeat, always active, and they're running my function that I just made. And what they're doing is they're looking at this block here and comparing it to all of these sections and then displaying or changing the block to the appropriate color based on how many mines this section is touching. So each one of these is comparing, or each one of these is monitoring each adjacent block here. And then based on what it sees here, it's going to output the color on this gray board here. So let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, so let's say there is a mine here. Okay, so all these blocks turned blue, or are going to display a 1 because they're all touching this one mine here. How about if I put a block here? Okay, so now these two blocks turned green because they're next to 2 mines, so they will show a 2. And how about if I put one right here? All right, so now this block is updated to red, or will display a 3 because it's touching 1, 2, 3 mines. And with a little more testing and verification, I was able to confirm that the numbers were all displaying correctly, and it was time to check off task 1 and move on to task number 2. So in the beginner level of Minesweeper, there is a 9x9 grid of 81 tiles, and throughout that grid there are 10 mines scattered randomly. So I had to figure out how to get 10 mines to display randomly in my little 9x9 grid here. So again, I asked my buddy the command block for help. Okay, command block, I need a command that randomizes the placement of 10 random mines across a 9x9 grid of 81 tiles randomly. And did I mention that it needs to be random? Yeah, kinda serious. Wait, what? There's a random command in Minecraft? So it turns out there was a random command that I was able to use, and to do so, you run execute as a player, and you store the result in a scoreboard. Then once that was done, all I needed to do was execute as the player if score, and have my random number here. If it matches 1, run set block, the block right next to it, and change it to white concrete. And I just did that for each one of these blocks. So this would be 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So then when I run the command, I get 10 randomly placed white concrete blocks on my 9x9 grid here. So what do you think, command block? That was pretty easy, wasn't it? Wait, what do you mean? Ah, crap, you're right. So it turns out it was possible to run the command 10 times, but only end up with 9 mines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh man, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again. 7, 8. Okay, that's 10. 10. Okay. 7, 8, 9. And turns out it was a lot more common than you would think to only come up with 9 mines. So essentially I needed to figure out a way to monitor my 9x9 board and keep track of how many times it updates. So I put these observers here, looking at each square on the board. Then when they update, they run a command here. And what this command is doing is it's just setting a redstone block. And every time it places the redstone block here, it ticks this redstone block in this direction 10 times until it hits this block here and ends the process. So now what I can do, rather than having my random function run 10 times, I can run it continuously and at the same time monitor my board, and when it updates exactly 10 times, the random process will stop and I'll be left with a board of exactly 10 mines. And now with our board randomizer functioning properly, it was time to check off task number 2 and move on to task number 3. So when you click on a tile in Minesweeper, basically one of 3 things can happen. You can click on a blank space, and what that does is it kind of just opens up all the rest of the blank spaces and then stops at the numbers here. The other thing can happen is you click on a mine and lose the game. Or you click on a number and just uncover that number. So luckily, the logic of clicking on a number or a mine is pretty easy. It's just, if you click on that tile, it just uncovers that tile. But what happens when you click on a blank space? And how do I get this to open up all the other blank spaces that are adjacent to it? So I woke up my buddy the command block to see what he thought would be the best way to accomplish this. Okay, I just need a command that does something different based on if there's a specific block in a specific location. Yeah, I guess that would work, but if it's a blank tile, how do I uncover all the adjacent blank tiles? Any ideas on how to do that? Oh, right, that makes sense. I will do that. And, oh, yeah, good night. And that's exactly what I was able to do in my function here. As you can see, if it is white concrete, then it sets the block to air, which just uncovers the kind of the cover. Same if it's blue, green, red, or purple, which would be a number, just sets them all to air. But if it's a blank tile, it not only changes the cover to air, it also runs these 4 other commands, which basically set a redstone block to each of the adjacent squares of the block that's running the command, and also runs the click function for those blocks. So a better way to explain this is, let's say this layer here is my cover, this gray wool is where the numbers show up, this is my mine grid, and then all these command blocks here are running my click function. So for example, if I run any one of these with the redstone block, we'll just place it here, it's going to look at this board here and say, is there a mine here or a number here or a blank space here? And if it's a mine or a number, it's going to change this cover to air, like so. However, if it's a blank space, it's going to run the command as normal and change the cover to air like that. But it's also going to set 4 redstone blocks like this and activate these 4 blocks, causing kind of a chain reaction that goes from blank tile to blank tile until all the blank tiles around have been opened up. So if my grid has exactly 0 mines and I click on the center tile here, it would just open everything up like that. Or if I clicked right here down in the corner, it would open up kind of like that. Now, what if I had a couple mines kind of spread out around the board? That would look like this. See how it opens everything up around each of the mines? So if I add a few more mines and click right about here, as you can see, it opens up all these blank spaces here, but doesn't get past this little wall of numbers here. And now with the click functionality working properly, it was time to check off task number 3 and move on to setting up the rest of the game.